Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be kicking off a new series on my channel titled the Glow Up series, where we're gonna get a chance to talk about all things glowing up, all things beauty, both inner beauty and outer beauty. And I'm so excited to be kicking off with a topic that has become near and dear to my heart, and that is fragrance. Because fragrance is a part of, we gotta walk into rooms smelling good, we gotta walk into rooms being confident, and fragrance is a part of that. So super excited to chat about that. Not super excited about the sirens that are going off right now, but that is besides the point. When it comes to starting a fragrance collection, there are probably two big reasons that I say one might consider starting a collection. The first is really just a matter of personal preference and expression. It is definitely possible to, have 1 to 2 fragrances that you stick with, maybe 1 to 4, I would say. So there is, believe it or not, there is a difference between having some fragrances and having a fragrance collection or a fragrance wardrobe. And there are 2 reasons why you might want to have a collection or wardrobe of fragrances. The first is just for personal expression's sake. I like to think of the fragrance I'm wearing as an extension of my mood, as an extension of my outfit. And so the more that you have, the more that you're able to play around and express yourself. The second reason you might want to have a fragrance collection is because it's like a mood booster. You get an olfactory experience. You get to, it's a mood booster. It's nice when you smell things that smell good. And so to the extent that you find more scents and fragrances that smell good to you, it just enhances your life. So before we dive deep into some of the things that you should know about building a fragrance collection, I want to take the time to just educate you really quickly, do a little quick rundown of some of the common terms that you might hear experienced fragrance heads using and throwing around on TikTok or Instagram. The first term is notes, and the notes of a fragrance, you can essentially consider them to be like the ingredients of a fragrance. So what are the things that the creator of the fragrance took from and put into the fragrance? So if it says that the notes are blueberry, lemon, and vanilla, right? Those are the things that make up the fragrance, and that's essentially going to tell you how it should smell or how it might smell. Notes are broken down into 3 categories. You typically have your top notes, your middle notes, and your base notes. Your top notes are going to be the fragrances that have or the ingredients that have the lightest molecules, and they tend to evaporate quickest. So you might smell the top notes as soon as you spray it, but that most likely is going to be different from what you smell after the fragrance has been worn for a few hours. And what you smell after a fragrance has been worn for a few hours is typically going to be the base notes, and those are the heavy ingredients. So ingredients like lemon, ingredients like bergamot, things like that tend to be very light, and so you might smell that on the first spritz. That's what you might get first. But then fragrances or ingredients like vanilla or sandalwood are heavier ingredients that tend to be what you smell after you've worn a fragrance for a long time. Those tend to be the base notes. So knowing the top, middle, and base notes will help give you a sense of what type of experience you're going to have with the fragrance after a bit of time has passed. Speaking of base notes, oftentimes you might hear the term dry down, or how it is when it's dried down. And that again has referred to what the fragrance smells like after a certain amount of time has passed. So the first spritz might be really lemony. I know I keep using this example, but the dry down might be more vanilla. And so maybe you don't like how something smells as soon as you spray it, but maybe the dry down, which is what holds it down, which is what is going to carry the fragrance on hour 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you like that a bit more. So that's just something to keep in mind. The next term is projection. And as you can imagine, when you think about like vocal projection, with fragrance, it's going to be the same thing. And fragrance projection is essentially just how far reaching the fragrance is when you spray it. So essentially, how loud is it, right? How far can it go? Is it something that is going to be intimate and only reach the people who are very close to me, or only reach people who hug me and are all up on me? Or is it going to be beast mode, which means it really is stretching. You can probably reach across the room. As soon as I come into a medium-sized room, maybe somebody knows I'm there and they can smell it even without being right directly in front of me. That's going to be your projection. Then you have your sillage. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but I think it is pronounced sillage, or it's not, it's spelled Sillage, but I'm gonna go with sillage. And different from projection, which is how far the scent goes, sillage is how much it lingers after you've moved or after you've left a particular area. So you know how like your fragrance can enter a room before you do, and that might be like your projection, what it might be ahead of you. But sillage is more like, what's your fragrance legacy in a bit of a way? It's kind of like, you know, if I finish this conversation with this person here and I now go on to the other side of the room, can that person that I was talking to right there still have the smell of the fragrance in that area, even though I've maybe walked away and moved like a minute ago? The term blind buy is often, you know, something that you might hear, and that is just referring to buying a fragrance without ever having smelled it, without ever having sampled it. So that is a blind buy. You're kind of going in without seeing or really smelling anything. But one thing that you can do to avoid a blind buy is to get a decant or a sample, and a decant is essentially just a small bit or a small sample that is drawn from a larger bottle of perfume. And then when it comes to the types of fragrances, some terms that you should know are designer, niche, and maybe even indie or Arab perfumes. So designer perfumes are going to be perfumes that are a part of, that have, I don't know how to say this, but they have designers, right? So like for Givenchy, for example, they sell clothes, they sell makeup, they also sell fragrances. So that is a whole entire designer. That is in contrast to niche perfume houses, which if you are a niche perfume house, you do not sell anything other than the fragrance. So common examples of a niche perfume house or a luxury niche perfume house, that's one of my favorites, is Parfums de Marly or Parfum de Marly. There are no Parfum de Marly shoes or Parfum de Marly bags or Parfum de Marly makeup. There's none of that. All you have is Parfum de Marly fragrance, and that is what would make it a niche fragrance designer or niche fragrance house. You're also going to come across maybe some indie brands that, even though they technically might be niche, they also might be a little bit newer, or might be, you know, not necessarily held to the same esteem or price point as some of your typical or your household name niche fragrances. And then you also have Arab perfumes. We know there is so much that goes on or that goes into fragrances, and the Arab perfumes low-key have it down on lock, and they have it for the low as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Another term to know is also the term dupe. And this is actually really important, and I think this is just important for the world of fragrances in general. But the word dupe refers to a fragrance that is very similar to another fragrance, and also is at a much lower price point. That might be a controversial opinion, but I don't think something is a dupe if it is like not almost identical and also not ridiculously less expensive. So so a common dupe that people like to, or a common fragrance that there have been so many dupes for, or that people say that there are so many dupes for, is Maison Francis Kurkdjian's Baccarat Rouge 540. That is a, I want to say $275, $300 plus fragrance. And if you were like, yeah, I found a dupe, and you tell me it's $350, like I'd be like, that's not a dupe, that's just a fragrance that smells similar. But if you tell me I found a fragrance that is a dupe, and it is $30, and the notes are really similar, and it smells really similar, and the dry down is the same, and the longevity is also very similar, but it's $50, that's probably a dupe that you have right there. What are some fragrance resources? What are some ways that beyond this video you can continue to educate yourself about the fragrance world, about fragrances, about new launches, about old launches, about what people have thought and said about fragrances? An easy one, honestly, has become TikTok for me. Searching a fragrance by name is probably going to pull up a lot of information. And this is also just a reminder that if you're a creator watching this and you share reviews on products, like add the name of that product to the actual text of the video so that it can come up when people want to search it and want to know about that fragrance. But more established resources are Fragrantica, which is essentially an online perfume community, and like almost every perfume that you can think of that exists is on that website, and it tells you the notes, it tells you the family of the fragrance, it will tell you the, like, you know, what people have ranked it in terms of projection, in terms of sillage, in terms of longevity, in terms of whether it's worth the price, and you'll also be able to see reviews and what people have thought about the fragrance. So that is a really, really good resource that I almost always check when I'm looking into a new fragrance to just see, like, hey, what do we have going on here? To get samples it's really important. Not every fragrance and not every designer or fragrance house is going to sell travel size or sell you know, smaller, or be available in store for you to try and smell yourself. And so in order to sample, but you still want to be able to sample, right? Like you still want to be able to know if a fragrance is worth it to you, if it is something that you like. And for that reason, places and websites that you should check out are Twisted Lily and Scent Split. Those are two, and Microperfumes as well. Those are a few of the places that I tend to go. I think Scent Split actually has a really wide variety of different fragrances, and Twisted Lily tends to have fragrances that are on the niche and the luxury side, which can be really good because you want to be able to try those things before dropping a lot of the cash that those fragrances often cost. There are different places that you can get perfumes. Obviously, like designer perfumes are sold at places like Sephora, like Macy's, Nordstrom, Saks, Neiman Marcus, all those places. But for some of the more niche and luxury fragrances, like you want to get them on a discount, and it's not always going to be on sales at your Bloomingdale's, Saks, Sephora, Nordstrom, all of those things. Fragrance X is a retailer or a website that sells them, and they're good, like they're real fragrances. FragranceNet is also another place. I also recently bought Parfum de Marly Cassili from ScentAngel, and it was on mega sale, like over $100 off. So I would say check out those places if you are, you know, wanting to see what fragrances are out there, but also want to get a discount on these fragrances as well. When it comes to sampling and testing fragrances, it is important for budget reasons. You don't want to be buying $100, $200, $300 fragrances and realizing when you get them that you don't like them, like you want, or that it's not worth the money because it didn't last on your skin and you wanted a fragrance that lasted 8 hours, or it wasn't worth it because you wanted a fragrance that, you know, was gonna reach the person across the room and it's only noticeable to people who are just talking to you. So when sampling, some of the things to keep in mind, the people are really just getting endangered today because this is like the 3rd time. When sampling, you want to make note of your first impression. Was it love at first sniff? Was it absolutely not? Was it, this is interesting, I've never smelled anything like this before? These are all, you know, things that you want to keep in mind. Like, how did you feel when you literally smelled it for the very first time? Like you should do with makeup, you want to, you know, do a wear test, right? Like wear the fragrance through the day, or wear the fragrance and put it on as you would a fragrance that you would wear, how you would wear it, and like see how you feel about it through the day. How long does it last on your skin? Does it end up smelling really weird on your skin, or does it end up smelling really good on your skin? It is important to not just spray the fragrance on paper, because how a fragrance smells when it is combined with your, you know, body warmth, body fluids, all of those things is going to be really different than when it is on a lifeless piece of paper. I also just want to note, when we talk about longevity, when we talk about sillage, when we talk about projection, like not every fragrance has to do that. Not every fragrance has to be a fragrance that's beast mode. Not every fragrance has to be a fragrance that the person that can be smelled in a room 20 minutes after you've left. Like, not every fragrance has to do that. And you don't necessarily want every fragrance to do that because there's a time and a place, right? Like in the workplace where you may not want to offend someone or offend their noses, like maybe you want to wear something that doesn't really last that long that you might be able to reapply during the day, or that, like, you know, just at least keeps you smelling fresh without it being too overpowering. The same might be true on an airplane, right? Like it's a small enclosed space for maybe, you know, for an X amount of time, for a potentially long amount of time. So maybe you don't actually want something that is going to be beast mode on that plane, because imagine if 100 or so people walked onto a plane with beast mode fragrances, like that might be overwhelming to the nose. So not every fragrance has to be that. You just have to decide what is worth it for you. If a fragrance is $500 and it is not lasting 8 to 12 hours and it is not reaching into up the nostrils of the person a mile away, like it probably is something that I don't think is worth it. Or maybe it's worth it if you just think it smells really, really good and you're willing to take a decant around with you all day to just continue to smell like that. You get to decide what's worth it for you, but those are some factors that you might want to keep in mind when deciding whether a fragrance is for you. Discovery sets are a thing as well. If you find that you like or want to just find your favorite fragrance from a particular house, Xerjoff, I know, has fragrance discovery sets. MFK, Maison French Escurgeon, has fragrance discovery sets, and that is really just an opportunity to be like, hey, you have like 12 fragrances. I don't know what's gonna work for me, so let me just try them all and find out for myself. Oftentimes, those are also sold on Twisted Lily or straight at the fragrance from the fragrance house themselves. And then trying and going in store is a really good opportunity, a really good way to try fragrances. So places in New York City like Scentbird are really good. I actually stopped in a couple of weeks ago just to, you know, get to try fragrances that I've been meaning to smell and wanted to see, because sometimes, you know, seeing the notes and the combination on screen on a website like Fragrantica is not that helpful. What might be helpful is paying attention to the fragrances that you have, looking up the notes of those fragrances and saying, and finding commonalities. So like, oh, I really like this fragrance, or I really like these fragrances, and they all happen to have a vanilla note. Potentially, you are probably somebody who is going to really love other fragrances that have strong vanilla notes, and that's something to just keep in mind. But on that note, let's talk about building a versatile collection. So when you are, you know, building a fragrance collection, as tempting as it might be to just get fragrances that all fit into a particular category, you might want to start off by getting one from each fragrance category or olfactory category. And what I mean by that is there are going to be floral perfumes, and specifically, I am a very huge lover of floral fragrances, particularly rose and white floral fragrances. I know that about myself, that if a fragrance is a white floral, I'm most likely going to love it, and if a fragrance is rose, I'm most likely going to love it. Do I have all of the rose fragrances out there? No, because at some point they tend to smell really similar, but I at least know that about myself, and if a new fragrance comes out and it says it has a rose note, I'm like, maybe I should try that and see it if it's different from what I have, because I probably might like it. But you have your woody fragrances, and these are going to be fragrances that have, you know, like wood notes, so like the ouds, the sandalwoods, and then you're gonna have your gourmands, and gourmand is really just a way to say like notes that smell like food, right? So your vanillas, your cherries, all of those, it's most commonly vanilla, but those types of categories are what are going to be like your gourmand. So all the foodie notes. And then you also, like a subsection of gourmand is the fruity perfume. So you might have, you know, gourmands that actually smell like cake, or that actually smell like things that you literally want to eat. And then you might have, you know, some of the fruity fragrances as well, in addition to spicy perfumes. So like your ambers, resin, things like that. So I would say when starting off, like, try and find a fragrance in each category that you like. Try and find a woody fragrance that you like, a spicy fragrance that you like, a gourmand that you like, and a floral that you like, unless you absolutely cannot find something in a category that you hate, right? So like, if you absolutely like every single spicy perfume that you've smelled or woody spice perfume you smelled is just not it for you, like maybe you'll probably leave that category. Or maybe you consider trying it in a different season, because maybe you're trying them in spring and like oftentimes we don't want to smell spicy fragrances in spring. We want to smell like the things that are around us, and that's going to be a lot of florals. And then from there, you might want to gradually, you know, venture off into specialized scents. So, you know, you're going to have your pretty straightforward scents that are like Kayali Vanilla 28. Like that straight up, I don't even know what the notes are, but that straight up smells like vanilla. And you know, once you've experienced those type of fragrances, maybe now you want to venture into fragrances that are less common, that are or notes that are less common, notes that may not be as intuitive to you when you look at them on paper. So those are all just things to keep in mind. But again, as I mentioned before, you want to be mindful of the season. You want to be mindful of special occasion fragrances. So like fragrances that might be, you know, for a really special date night or for a red carpet event or for an important gala, versus like fragrances that are going to be great at the office, or fragrances that are going to be great at the office in the winter versus great at the office in the summer. So there are really a lot of different ways you can break it down when you start to think about occasion and when you start to think about season. Now, something that is really important once you start to build your fragrance collection is how you store the fragrances. Fragrances can like go bad, and by that it's like they can become weaker. So a fragrance that might have a 12-hour projection or a 12-hour longevity, if it's not stored properly, you might like, you know, really mess up the composition of the fragrance, and it might only last an hour or two. So it's really important that you store your fragrance in a cool, dry place that is out of sunlight. So not in your bathroom that gets, you know, humid air, consistently maintains humidity because you shower there every single day. Not directly in the sunlight. All of those things are things to factor in when you think about, you know, where to store your fragrances. The best place is usually going to be something like a cabinet, a closet, a storage drawer. Those are going to be the best places. Or if you got it like that and you have a particular room or that you want to cordon off that you can make sure it doesn't get sunlight during the day, that's a great place to put it as well. Once we get fancy, and this is probably where I would like cap off the beginner guide to building a fragrance collection, because you're now kind of getting to the intermediate. Like, this is a great opportunity to explore with scent layering, and maybe we'll talk about that in a different video. But scent layering is really just a way to kind of create like your own unique fragrance by just like using more than one at a time. And I like to do that because I have built quite a collection, and so like if I don't use more than one fragrance at a time, I run the risk of just like not using and not finishing my fragrances. And so I like to do that, and I always love like when people are like, what are you wearing? And I'm kind of like, well, I have, you know, multiple things on right now. And it kind of helps ensure that you're not going to just like smell like everybody else. That's a different topic because I don't really care about smelling like everybody else, but some people do. But like, for example, a lot of people wear Baccarat Rouge 540, or at least used to, but it also is a really good fragrance to layer. And so if you're someone who's like, I don't want to smell like every girl that's wearing Baccarat Rouge 540, like take another fragrance. Quite literally almost any fragrance you can imagine goes well with that. Take it and spray along with it. And let me know if you want a separate video about like fragrance layering and scent layering in general, and like the ways to do that, how to spray it, how to pair perfumes, things like that. Maybe we probably will talk about that in our next fragrance video. So some final tips for building your fragrance collection. One, I would say stay true to yourself. It can be very tempting to see perfumes or see fragrances go viral on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube or just social media in general, and to think like, oh, I have to have it, I need that, like I need to smell it, I need to try it. It's very tempting, but like if you don't like it, you don't like it. Like, and it's not even an unpopular opinion. It can just be like your opinion that you don't like it, because everybody's nose is different, everybody's body composition is different. How fragrances are going to react to people's skin is going to be different. So like, it's okay if you don't like it. So like, don't feel a need or feel pressure to be like, oh, this is the best fragrance in the world just because a lot of other people say it is. Another tip and another really important thing is to sample a lot. Like, this should be, especially if you're beginning to build a fragrance collection, like you should be heavy in your sample phase, to really just be like, and to take notes on that, to get a sense of what it is that you actually like. And last but not least, like, enjoy the journey. It has been so fun for me to see like how my fragrance collection has grown over the years, how I've, you know, built a relationship with fragrance, how that has impacted my confidence, how that impacts my mood and my outfit and things like that. So really just enjoy the opportunity to like become the girl that smells good. Like, that's so much fun. Obviously, there is so much more to smelling good than fragrance. There is, you know, your body lotion, your hygiene routine, your shower routine, all of those things. But overall, that is all to say, like, when it comes to fragrance, like, just enjoy it, because it is an opportunity to just like play around and to just like do something for you and do something that enhances your mood and enhances your experience. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this video. I'm so glad we got to talk about fragrances today. Like, I haven't been able to chat about it in this way ever on my social media, so looking forward to more chats, looking forward to more more topics in the Glow Up series, which, by the way, if you have any topics that you want to talk about, if you have anything that you want to cover, that you want to, you know, have a little girl talk, powwow, sit down, whatever, or learn, get instructional tutorials, things like that, like, please feel free to leave a comment, because I would love to kind of listen to and speak to some of the things that you want to see. So yeah, be sure to like and subscribe so you know when I'm going to be back. Every Wednesday we got a flow going, and I'm super proud of myself for being consistent with a new venture and a new platform and picking this back up again. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you next time. Bye.